Okay, welcome. Thank you for being here to Light Conversations with Sherry, Kay, and friends.
Yay.
So tonight we're going to be talking about the ego and duality and all that comes along with that. And but first, before we get started, I just want to call in our guides, our ancestors, our spirit helpers, uh, everyone that is out there that is tuning into us, that we're tuning into, and bring them into the sacred space. Our intent for this conversation is the purpose of growing, healing, and sharing our truth with others. So whether it be here tonight or when someone watches this back later on, uh, our intent is also to raise the vibration within and outward so that everyone can feel that. So please take what resonates and leave the rest. Remember, everyone is on their own individual journey. We all have our different perspectives, and we honor all with love and without judgment. And so let's see. I think that's pretty much it. We'll just go ahead and dive into the conversation. So first of all, the reason, well, I thought about doing the ego and duality probably about a week ago. It just came up and I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And then I went to the Yin on Fire event up there in Cedar City. And there was a lady that was on the main stage, and she said that our goal is to dissolve the ego. And I was just like, what? Like, I've never heard that before. I've heard of the death of the ego, but never to dissolve the ego. So I'm like, oh, this is so good that she brought this up because this is the perfect opportunity for me to really do a little bit of a deeper dive into it before I came on tonight and to just talk to you guys. And so basically, I kind of have it in three sections, like what is the ego, then the deeper dive into the ego and what it can do, like the dark night of the soul. So we'll kind of get into that. And then how do we deal with the ego and how we can bring ourselves through that ego and what it means, whether we dissolve it, it's a death, or we integrate it or whatever. So let's see. Oh, great. Candace. Welcome, Candace.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome, welcome. We're just getting started. We're just introducing the subject on ego. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is basically is what is the ego? And so just from my own little deep dive that I did, basically I came up with it, it's a man-made meaning, a conceptual meaning within our own self in regards to what our image is or what our life is. It's like it's composed of our image of ourselves, our idea of ourselves. It's this mind-made sense of self, right? And so it's not something that we're born with. It's something that we develop from an early age, from those that are around us, telling us who we are, what we are, how we are, and this can go on through, first our parents, maybe our siblings, co-workers, bosses, teachers. I don't know if I said that already or not, but classmates, friends, so it can come from a variety of different ways. And as we're being raised and all this information is coming at us, then we have this perspective of who we are, what our identity is, right? And so that can be considered the development of the ego. And let's see, I know I have written here too that people tend to be in search of an acceptable image. So their image is important, and that's part of the ego. And what that role, what role we can play as a person here on earth, who I am in the sense of what I'm going to do in this life. I know one gal asked me, she says, well, what do you do? Like, as in for work. And I just looked at her and I said, I play. That's what I do. I play. I just thought that was what I do. And anyway, I don't want to be identified by my 3D job if I had one, which would be an accountant, right? That doesn't resonate with me anymore. Although I can still do the work and I'm happy to do the work on my own terms. That's not my identity. Part of the ego, though, that's how it works. So it's okay to have an identity. It's okay to have an image of yourself. But what we have to think about is if it's backed up by deeper matters, right? And so it's how we perceive that ego. And it can be perceived in all kinds of different ways by all different people, depending on what their own journey is. So the ego, it drives our behavior. It can be reactive. So if somebody says something to us and we get a little wounded, it maybe puts a little negative tone in our mind, then we can react right back at them so it's like a protection, right? So the ego serves as like this protection mechanism. So just thinking about the ego, when something like that happens, it could be very easy to, make that person feel bad about how they're trying to make you feel, or we try to make them feel like they're less so that our ego isn't wounded quite as much. But really, that doesn't make us feel any better at all. And so that's where the ego kind of comes into action, and we have that reactive response. But when we become aware of the ego, then that's where we start to transform it and turn it around, and where we can have acceptance and give it love, and then go further with it. So if anybody else would like to comment on what the ego is, I would be more than happy to hear what you have to say. Anybody? Okay.
I do like how you described it. That was really well said about, well, and it's how you develop. I mean, that really is how the ego forms. You start out with, here, wear this name, and then oftentimes here's your religion, here's your belief system. And then, so it starts to develop a personality, and then you are trying to live up to expectations of your parents and like your religious leaders or friends or, teachers, like you said. And so it starts to create this mind, this filter system. And so now anything that comes in new, your ego is built by how you filter what's coming in. And so then it's kind of like the building of a personality and how you respond to things, how you think about things. And it kind of associates also with the feelings, how you develop your feelings. And that is, so the way you described how it develops, I thought was really awesome.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the emotions that we all hold are very well tied to the ego as well. And so, yeah, and until you become aware of it, the ego really is the driver of your seat, of your behavior, of your reactions, and everything, all your choices, all your decisions that you make in life. But then once you become aware of it, I think that you're able to make a more conscious decision for yourself, going forward. And even though, we all have our wounds, right? And we all have the ego still with us. And even if we worked on that ego and we've given it love and acceptance and it has its place, we still can have someone come at us, and it can be, ow, that hurt, but then how we react to it can be so much different. But what I'm thinking too, when, even though a lot of us have done the work and, really just tried to be our best version of ourselves, trying to keep the ego in check by having compassion and understanding, and just understanding how the whole world works. I think that I say a lot. Sorry about that, but I do. I notice that. I just think that we all have, when we have those negative emotions come up, we all sometimes have to like think about how we react to it. And so sometimes we react a little faster than what we wish we would have, but that's okay, as long as we work on that. The other thing is where when you have people that have been on a journey, a spiritual journey, and they're like in this positive spiritual journey, and then something happens in their life, like a major event, and it can put them into a spiral, right? And for some, that's called the dark night of the soul, right? And so let's see what I have on here on this piece of paper. It says, when we have negative emotions, we need to face them head on. Avoiding them or pushing them away is what can cause our ego to go into full mode. So when we do have negative emotions come up, the last thing we want to do is push them away or avoid them. We want to confront them head on and ask the questions, why am I having this negative emotion? Talk to yourself, talk it out, figure it out, and then give it gratitude and thank it for giving you the lesson that you needed to bring you back into center to where you need to be. But it's not always that easy either. So the ego is triggered when we're in a negative state of mind. So like I said, if there's like this major event and we get in this negative state of mind, sometimes it's not always easy to bring ourselves out of that. What happens is that now we have self-doubt. We start criticizing ourselves. We go into judgment. We start feeling anxiety, stress, fear, panic attacks, or even depression. And when we get to that point, and when those negative emotions come up, and then it just kind of just like takes over, and then we're criticizing ourselves. That's the ego, right? That's the ego feeding that self-doubt, that self-criticism, that self-loathing, or self. It would be like you don't believe in yourself anymore, right? And so that's something that can happen, and that's really when we get caught up in the ego or in that negative state of being. This is what can make us spiral into the dark night of the soul. And so in the ancient mystery schools, it was very interesting for me to take that dive and to see that what they did in ancient times was try to mimic that dark night of the soul. So they knew at the time that there were people that would go through this process, and when they came through this process was a spiritual awakening. And so what they did was they tried to mimic it by putting people in a dark, small space like a coffin or a very small, dark room for days on end, to try to get them to see if they could transform this darkness into a spiritual awakening. So it's not necessarily a negative thing when you talk about the dark night of the soul, because I think for a lot of people, when they say, oh, that person's going through that dark night of the soul, is that their weakness? Is it this? Is it that? No, it's a process that they need to go through. Not everyone needs to, but there are people that do need to go through it. And when they do go through it, it can transform them into the spiritual awakening or a level up of where they already are. And so I thought that was really interesting to know, because I really just didn't know that about the dark night of the soul. Now I knew that going through it was like they call it the death of the ego and the the rebirth of the true self, you know. And so when, you know, and thinking on that, I figured that, you know, going through that process is very harsh indeed to have to go through that process. Because like I said, it can bring on the anxiety, the panic attacks, the depression, the, you know, all those negative thoughts, the judgment, you know, and misery, right? And so, but to know that on the other end of that is something very, very special. So when someone is going through the dark night of the soul, compassion, we need to show that compassion to them, knowing that it's a really tough journey, but also that they are going to come out of it on the other end of it in just an amazing transformation. So let's see. So another thing too that I saw, so just because you can have that kind of experience doesn't mean that you should want to or that you would want to go into that kind of experience. It's a really, really tough journey to go through, and it is not for everyone. But those that do go through it, it is meant to be, and there is a reason for it.
Hey, Sherry, on that note, I just have one little snippet here on just as you start on the spiritual journey, especially shamanic, there is that initiation, and that has to basically cleanse all of your, I don't want to even say negative things in your life. You know, you talked about bad emotions or negative emotions. I'm starting to go more to the school of their emotions that have different energies instead of good or bad. There's no judgment on it. It's just the different energies of anger can save you. Protective anger can always save you. You should always carry protective anger. But
And
even
that's
the
where,
other types of anger,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Chris.
But all types of anger have that their own form of energies, just like joy, happiness, love. They all carry their own energy signature. It's kind of what we do with it. But that dark night, or what I like to call initiation, has to cleanse out things that aren't serving you. And you have to go back into your true self. The ego has a really good trick. It's really smart. Sometimes it'll tell you, hey, I am your true self. But the way I tell, if it's just my ego saying, oh, you've really done well and you've really gone far and you're able to do this and that, I always know it's the ego talking because it always leaves me wanting for more. The ego is never satisfied. The ego is never at a point where it just is centered in the present moment and it just wants to be. Ego it depends so much on things that are so outside ourselves to feed it that it will not allow your inner peace, joy, happiness, because it's always looking for that next big thing, that next thing to feed it. And, these stories we tell ourselves, like, oh, yeah, I'm doing so good. I can do this, I can do that. Sometimes that's the ego playing a pretty good trick on ourselves, saying, you're there. really, you got years to go. It's like,
Exactly. Yeah,
damn.
exactly. I liked what you said about like with anger, and when you look at it in both ways. And so that's when we start looking at the duality, right? And so you have this or you have that. And so if you only look at this, then you're out of balance. But if you look at this and that, then that's where the duality is. And you can ask yourself, how how will this make benefit me? But then how will that benefit me? Well, what will this do for me? Or what will that do for me? So just because this and that are different in our perception as being separate, still we can look at both because they're the same, this or that, and ask those questions, and that's where the duality comes in. So same thing with emotion. So it depends on how we look at that emotion, like you were saying, Chris. That's very important, especially when we're going through, if someone is going through the dark night of the soul or an initiation, like you called it. So I think for some people, it might be harder for them to see that duality, and all they're seeing is that one spin of that negativity, right? Or that judgment or whatever within themselves, or whatever, however it is that they are experiencing it. But when they can get to a point where they can start to immerse from it, then that's where the duality will come into effect, where they can start to see how they can incorporate the that instead of just the this, and where they can still have this, but if they also take the that, then they're going to start to find their balance. And it's not always that easy to do that. And so part of the reason why I wanted to have the conversation here today was for those that watch and maybe they're going through something, or maybe they know someone else that's going through something. And, maybe there's just that one little thing that can help them try to come out of that one-sidedness, right? When it's the duality of looking both ways.
And
And so that's
I just wanted to say something too about what Chris, what you said. So what comes to me with in regard to the ego always wanting more, always striving for more, I have come to a place in my journey where I'm learning that the ego is what keeps me alive. It's always driven to find something to keep you going, to creating, to motivate you to keep your body alive. And so there's so many aspects to that. So I when you become aware that there's going to be duality, there's always going to be a side to you that you came here to experience, right? So then you got the duality. So you're going to have the anger, you're going to go through the gamut of emotions. And really the key, when you realize that the ego is the survivor, it's the programs, it's the survivor, it's the body, it's the personality, it's literally what keeps the creation expanding, so it keeps you, what else can I do? And to me, that's kind of like when I think of the one, how it all began, what else can I become? And so that's kind of how it all started. So then you can start to, instead of dissolving the ego, you can integrate it and say, oh, you know what? There's that part of the ego that's serving my highest and greatest good. And so when I do feel that joy and I feel that everything and anything that resonates with me, that is still part of my ego, but that's the good side of my ego. That's the part of me that I want to feed, like the two wolves, or the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, so to speak. But they're both, even the anger, like you said, Chris, is serving you if you use it correctly. Anger can save you. It can drive you. It's higher up on the emotional scale than depression and grief. And so then you can use it. You know what? No more. not again. I'm changing the way that I do that because I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So the ego is the driver. And if you start to become aware that the ego doesn't need to not, it doesn't need to not exist. Okay, let me say that better. It doesn't need to dissolve. It doesn't need to cease to exist. And we just need to become aware that that is part of this whole experience. The ego is a wonderful thing that keeps you alive and keeps you striving to create and imagine and wonder and keep this body going. So that was just two thoughts I had about that, but yeah.
That, thank you. Yeah, and everything that you said, Chris, really resonates with me. It's when you can have that no judgment. So when you can come out of that judgment, whether it's judgment on yourself or judgment on others or judgment on this thing, it doesn't matter. But if you can release yourself from the judgment, I think then that's where you'll be able to start that path to immerse or to emerge yourself out of that spiral. What the dark night of the soul is what I'm talking about. But for some, it seems like their whole life is collapsed. Whatever event that may have happened to them, and they just feel like everything is meaningless. Everything is just this ridiculous place to be. And it just takes time to come through that. But hopefully that's what they do. And starting off with no judgment on those emotions is a really good place to start. Other places that a person can do to start on is to kind of skipped over some stuff, but I'll go back to it. So I said, let go of judgment, but gratitude, right? Surrender and gratitude are probably like one of the two first things that are like top of the list. To surrender to what has happened without judgment, to know that whatever has happened is in the past now, and you can't change the past. So why dwell on the past? And so where do you go from there to the present? One of the things that I had written on here somewhere is that when you're depressed, you're dwelling on the past. When you're anxious, you're focused too much on the future. You're just obsessed or too much over there. But when you're at peace, that's when you're in the present moment. And easier said than done for some of these people that are coming through this. But if they can first start with that no judgment, like you said, Chris, and then go into that surrender. And then when you go into gratitude is one of the most powerful emotions, really, or feelings, or what would you call gratitude?
I know fear can't exist in the realm of gratitude, or if you're in gratitude, you cannot have both, either one or the other.
Exactly. And so that's why gratitude is at the top of the list, right? Because if you can have gratitude for everything around you, no matter what it is, you have gratitude for the chair that you're sitting in, gratitude for the cup of water that you have to drink. It can be the simplest things for whatever it is that you have. It doesn't have to be more than that. And just gratitude to be breathing and living and to be growing and healing. And as we learn and go through these processes, how expanding that really truly can be. But it also says that gratitude radiates that positive glowing energy. I saw that a few times when I was going through some of this information. And it's a powerful practice to have, gratitude can take you a really, really long way. So when you find yourself in that duality of one-sidedness, or in the spiral of negativity or self-criticism, then gratitude is really the place. If you can come into that place, it will probably center you the fastest. And I know I've had times where I've said things that were self-criticizing, and I've had someone there for me to say something, and it made me just really think about it. And it's just like, wow, I am so grateful, first of all, that I have a friend like that that would say that to me and make me think about what it is that I was doing to myself. That was really the ego speaking, right? And so gratitude is really powerful. I have a lot of gratitude for all of my friends that help me on my spiritual journey and that keep me going, for sure. Some of the other things that I have written down is, we can inspire others. How can we inspire others if we don't have that gratitude for ourselves, right? That's self-love. You got to love yourself and what you're doing and who you are. And if you're not in judgment and you have gratitude, it just starts to come natural and it just starts to blossom from there. It just really goes out. Being content with yourself, accepting yourself. That's a big step for those that are going through that deep spiral. Observing, that's a big word that we've been using a lot lately, being the observer of what's going on around us. Instead of being reactive like the ego, we step back and we observe what is going on around us. And we're able to make that choice and that decision and have that reaction be in a much better place. And again, without judgment, on ourselves or on others that are around us. Mindfulness, observe your thoughts without judgment, acknowledge that the past is beyond your control, and shift your focus to the present moment. So that is something that helps us to just kind of come out of that space. I have, non-attachment, compassion. Do not compare yourself with anyone because we're unique. One of the things that was said, I don't know if I have this written down. Yeah, I do. So one of the things that someone said earlier that I was listening to, he said, when your ego comes up and you have that thought, maybe that self-criticizing thought, like, I think I weigh too much. Instead of saying, I think I weigh too much, my mind says, I think I weigh too much. My mind is saying that, not myself. Or if it's a self-criticism about, I'm dumb. Instead of saying, I am dumb, why did I think that? I'm so dumb. No. Instead, you say, my mind says I am dumb. So it's the mind, the ego, that is saying these things, not the self, not the true self, right? Now, going back to the dark night of the soul, and as we come through that depression or that negative thoughts, and as we start to transform ourselves little by little by telling ourselves affirmations. I am worthy. I am loved. I am good enough. I am a spiritual person. I know I have love within me. Anything that makes a person, whatever affirmations that you need to say for yourself, is a very powerful practice. And it's something that can be done daily, and maybe should be, if you want to use the word should. It's something that we can do for our lifetime, because the ego is always going to be in that background, pop it in here or there. And even though we can integrate the ego at some point, it's always there for that protection, right? Or for that test that comes up, whatever the case may be. Let's see. Oh, practice living in the present moment requires conscious awareness. So when we become aware of the ego, it helps us, like I said, with our decisions, with our choices, with our actions, the way we live our life, the way we think about the thoughts that we're having. So when the thoughts come through, oh, that's my mind, just talk to your mind. Ego, that's not what I want. That's not what I'm thinking. That's not my projection. So you step aside. Thank you very much for trying to protect me, but I'm going to take it from here, and this is what I'm going to do instead, or whatever. But it's something that can really help when you're anchoring your attention to the present moment. I like that. Anchor into the present moment, and that will help to get you out of your ego. Develop a deeper connection with yourself. Self-talk is good. It's a good thing. People think we might be crazy for having self-talk, but self-talk can be a very, very good thing. And that's what you want to do. You want to nurture yourself. You want to be the nurturing parent, not the abusive parent, or the one that is, telling you that you're no good. You want to be the one that you want to be the parent that is saying all the right things to yourself. And as you do that, and you are that, others will know that of you as well. And to remember, you wouldn't treat someone else that way, so why would you treat yourself that way? So you need to be good to yourself, that self-love.
I just want to say real quick, because I've only got a minute and I've got to get off for tonight. What I love about this, just having conversations, even though, this is being recorded, what makes it comfortable and authentic is even just, you're just sharing perspectives and things that come in about the topics. And so even as I'm listening and I've had what I connected to or resonated with, and as I'm listening to you guys, you express what you've learned or what resonates for you, and it is just so wonderful to gather and just have conversation about it, because it expands. You might have an aha moment like I have just now, just listening. I'm like, yeah, that resonates. And so that's what these amazing conversations do when you get together and you just talk about in a conversation like this, and you speak from your heart, and you get out of judgment, and you get out of the fear of what the ego is going to think if you say something. Oh no. And so I had that moment where I thought, oh, I could feel myself stepping into my mind, my ego. And as you were talking, I felt myself going, oh, that's my mind. That's my ego. Exactly what she's saying was happening in real time. And I just wanted to just bring back up just this is all about just getting together and just sharing, and growing together and expanding. And before I get off I get to go help my daughter with her wedding plans, but I'm glad I could be here for, a short time. One tool that's really helped me when I go through the dark night of the soul, because I think that to the level that we go into the dark, heavy energy, that's the dark night of the soul part of the experiences. It's sorry, I was just thinking of a thought, but I had 3 come in at the same time. But this is just authentic conversation, right? But what really has helped me when I observe that sometimes it takes you a minute to realize it's the ego or the mind. And then once you're like, aha, like Chris, like you were saying, I see you, ego, or like you were saying, no, that's the mind, that's the ego. And that is talking to yourself. Aha, I see you, and you're becoming the observer. One tool that I really love using is a quote from Napoleon Hill that says, every adversity carries the seed of an equal or greater benefit. And so sometimes when I'm going through it, I'm like, wow, I'm really looking forward to those benefits, really looking forward to those. And sometimes that's all I need. Now, other times I just got to feel through it and cry it out. But that is something that I use sometimes when I go through that, because to the depths that you go to those darker feelings and heavy emotions is how far up you can go to, that balance and that. So just being grateful, like you said, that, oh, you know what, I was able to go there. You can relate to other people who go there. You have more empathy. You're able to understand. So find something to be grateful for, that while you're going through that, you know what, I will be able to relate to anyone else going through this for sure. And then sometimes you just cheer yourself on, like, I can do this, I can get through this. And that might be the good part of the ego. I'm still learning what that means. But it is that plausibility of, hey, there could be something positive coming from this negative, and that can kind of help you get kind of harmonized and balanced again. So that's one of the tools that I use when I go through those darker, heavier emotions.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Oh, thank you for coming on, Lorena. Sure do appreciate that. I love hearing you speak and being part of the conversations. I know you have to go, but we were really glad to have you here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Much love, you guys.
So I just wanted to say a little bit about the death of the ego. And so people say that when you come through that dark night of the soul, and as you immerse yourself out of it, and where you can drop that judgment, you come into gratitude, and you're able to surrender. A lot of people call that the death of the ego, and it's the rebirth of the true self, or the death of the old self, the birth of the true self. And so when they say death, does death mean dissolve? And my answer, my perspective is no, that's not what it means. It means that you've learned like this really huge lesson in duality, and how and judgment and self love, and how all of everything all tied up together within the perspective of the dark night of the soul, and how you come out of that. I just I think that it's like Lorena said, it can be integrated, but yet it's always going to still be there, because it is that protective mechanism. And so that's just something that dissolving the ego completely, that's something for me that it doesn't resonate with, that I don't resonate with. And then just taking that the word death of the ego just means that it's like a reformed ego, or that it's set aside and it pops up every once in a while, and we can still talk to it and love it and accept it, and it's there for our protection, and that's a good thing, and it can be used for different good positive actions. But when it rears its head, we can always put it in its place as well.
Can I interject really quick?
Please.
So I always want to say, hi, my name is Michelle and I'm a recovering addict. I'm just kidding. Because I'm on Zoom all the time. Anyways, as a recovering addict, my ego fed my addiction, and I thought that I could control it, and it numbed me, and it helped me feel powerful. And so I never want to forget where I'm at, right? I never want to become so humble. This is a really good topic, because I don't really have I'm going through a lot of dark nights of the soul recently, and I like how you guys are telling me that, or suggesting like, I'm losing it. So much information to take in. You know, I love being humble to a point, but my ego protects me and it keeps me striving. Like but I have to have that balance, like you said, Sherry, because like I've lived my whole life on this self-will, which was my ego, right? Like just surviving, surviving whatever it took to survive. And so trusting that something bigger than me, my guides, my angels, my ancestors, my God, goddess, whatever that is, um, has that plan, right? And I know I was sharing with Sherry like earlier, like I have to come to. I love how Christopher Two Ravens like taught me that acronym. I use that acronym like a lot in my life today. That RAIN, like um, because yeah, it's other people's egos now, right? And and I have to make that decision that I have to like completely break free, because then my ego comes out and then I get kind of ornery and mouthy, or it's ego's a hard topic for me because my ego, my self-will, like kept me alive, but now I'm alive and I'm not using drugs or and so like all those things that I've been trying to fix for all these years, like I have to walk through that. um and I know that, but man, it can get dark. It can get really dark. And so this is a really good topic, like I have to tell my mind what it's telling me is lies, you know, and other people's lives all my life. And try to find that way to have that balance, have a good ego, I guess you could say, in the sense of, but yet stay humble. So I don't know. This is a really good one. I wish I would have been taking notes, but you
Well,
recorded it.
I'm happy to share the video with you. And so
Absolutely.
you'll have it. You can go back on it.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that, Michelle. I know that that is really, deep in your soul, and expressing who you are authentically means a lot to me and everyone else. And I hope that also too, that some of the things that we said, like the self affirmations and the self love and talking to the ego and doing that like self talk, different things like that will help you, because truly you are a wonderful, unique human being that we love so much. And we're so grateful to have you as in our group, and for you to express your authentic self the way that you do is very, very refreshing. So thank you for that. I really, really do appreciate it. And then also to know that from my deep dive that I did on the dark night of the soul, on the other end of that is this beautiful transformation, this leveling up in your spiritual journey. And so as you come through it, and as you, uh, you know, put some of these practices into place for yourself, and as you blossom out of that, you'll be able to look back onto it and say, wow, what a journey that was. And then, but also just have these activations and these blessings because of it. And so I hope that you can look forward to that.
Thank you, Sherry. Thanks. Thank you, all of you, for your shares.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the like you talked about survival, Michelle. That person that you had to be and I had to be when I was going through my survival, that's still a big part of me. Those stories are still there, but they're transforming, they're changing. And I'm not the same person I was even before I met you. You've seen me change. You went on a date with me, even. But that part of the survival, what you're doing now to survive this time, is not who you will be. This thing I'm going through now, I won't be the same man. They talk about the river. A man never steps into the river twice the same. Either the river's changed, he's changed, or both have changed. This is just flowing, and it's just evolving. These energies that we're in now will change on the 22nd when Virgo goes out of and goes into Libra. These crazy energies that you're feeling and the effect of drumming. You know, I drum every day, and yeah, it's transforming my life, and so are you, and so Sherry, you too. I watch everything, and I'm just so grateful that I have all of you in my heart and in my life.
Same here, Chris. I feel the same way. Oh, just feel that love. It's so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for being your authentic self. And thank you for being here tonight and contributing to the conversation. It means a lot to all of us and anyone who listens back on the video. We didn't talk
Thank
a
you for
lot,
putting this together.
yeah, yeah. We didn't talk a lot about duality. I don't know if that's something that you want to touch on. I don't have like a whole lot of information in front of me, but I like the way that a gal put the duality. You know, basically what what duality is. It's the principal idea that everything is split or opposites. So like front and back, or on and off, or light and dark, or whatever. Like the coin that has heads and it has tails, still a coin, right? And so this gal was talking about duality, and she was talking about the body and how we're split in half. We have two eyes and two ears and two hands and etc. You know, and so if the way that we look at duality, when I was talking about this or that and how we view it, if we only view it one-sided, when you look at the body, if we only use our left side and that's it, and we don't use our right side at all, we wouldn't be in balance. We need to use both sides of our body to be in balance. And same thing with anything else in duality that is either split or opposite, or the way we perceive it, two separate things or two opposites. And so I thought that was really interesting. She also brought up like the negative side of duality is like what you said, Chris, earlier. This is good and this is bad. And when we do that, then that's when we put labels on it. That's when we entrench ourselves in the idea of separation. And so we can look at politics, Republicans and Democrats. They're always fighting against each other instead of working toward the same goal. And that's something that, we can look at as an example. So do we validate one side over the other, or do we, without judgment, look at these different things, regardless if it's a coin or a political party? So two sides are part of the same thing. Integrating both sides will help us to navigate our reality easier, cleaner, and in a more enjoyable way. So again, like without the judgment, saying, oh, no, that's right. Oh, no, that's wrong. We all have our different perceptions, but without judgment on each other, someone else can believe what they want to believe, and to be open to what each of it means, or how it can be used in a positive way, or what would benefit you, or how you could use it to further your journey, or whatever the case may be. And so I just wanted to kind of point that out about the duality piece of it, because truly in spirituality, in my perception, that nothing is separate. And so if you have this and you have that, it really is the same thing anyway, right? Because it's all just energy. So I think that's pretty much all I really had to say tonight about the ego and about duality. So if there's anything else that you'd like to add, Chris or Michelle.
I was going to go. I'm studying the Tantra, and I've done, Neo Tantra, which is kind of the New Age version. But one thing I've been observing with you, Sherry, is these ceremonies. When you talked about the ceremonies down in Costa Rica, and then the ones at summer solstice, kind of what I was going through on the dark night, how I put in my head that Harvesting Light was a female group. And, I put in there, my story was, I don't fit, I'm in the peripheral. And you've kind of helped me come out of that, talking about your ceremonies with Divine Masculine was there with you. You were representing the Divine Feminine. And that's just how it works. It works together. And that's more of a classic Tantra. It's the non-duality. You look at Shiva, the picture of Shiva when he's laying there, and Shakti is coming. It looks like she's sitting on top of him, but really she's coming out of him. And it looks like he's in Shavasana. And but really he's just part of her. She's part of him. And that's more of a classic how the Tantra works. For me, I'm just learning about it, but it's really interesting how with your words and your description of your ceremonies got me interested to come back and look at the group as a different view of it. That yeah, it does need to happen with both male and female. It doesn't, and the female part of me needs to be part of it. The male part of it needs to be part of the group too. I need to do both. I need to do my part, which is a non-duality part. It comes together.
I'm
So-
really glad you brought that up, Chris. Thank you for saying that. The Divine Feminine is, coming up, and we're really glad to see that. But we do need to have the Divine Masculine, and we need to have that balance between the two. That's what this is all about, the balance between both. And I can tell you that at last week's drumming that we went to, when I walked away from that and really had time to integrate what happened at that ceremony, so we're drumming, all of us were drumming, and at that in some moment during that drumming, there was a clear audio that came through, and it was the Divine Masculine coming through with an Om chant of sort, and Chris also heard it as well. And then as that started to fade off, the Divine Feminine, a Celtic angelic choir of Divine Feminine, started to sing in a language that I didn't recognize. And it was just so beautiful. And so as I walked away and had time to integrate that, I realized that the divine masculine and the divine feminine was represented in that drum circle, and that it came through the clear audio, and those that came in with us for that healing session and that integration, what was the divine masculine and the divine feminine coming together and letting us know that they were there with us in that balance of both. We need both the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And this is where we are going. And I couldn't be happier about that. It makes my heart so full of joy and happiness that's where we're heading, and that's where we're going. And it's starting with us and with others. So thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I'm glad Kosh is on board. He's a good guy.
Yes, I am too. I love all you divine masculines and all the divine feminines within our group, and all those that want to join us. It's beautiful and wonderful. Well, that's all I have for tonight. Unless you have anything else, Michelle or Chris, then I'm just going to say thank you so much for coming on, sharing your authentic selves, and just putting it out there for everyone. Just so grateful to be here with you and with Lorena earlier, and for those that could pop on and pop off. We're just so grateful that they were here for the little bit that they could be. So until next week, on another light conversation, I'll see you then. Okay. Love you.
Keep the conversation going.
Love you
Will
guys.
do.
Have a great evening. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you, Michelle. All right. Good night.
Gonna call you in a minute, Michelle. Oh, she's gone. Boop. She's out of here.